Okay, and I do apologize, everyone. I have to drop at 8:25. So welcome to our deep dive series on synchronizing subscriber status with Salesforce. Just to give you a heads up, we've got a couple of amazing topics coming up, both for, as JB mentioned, the Agentforce Fundamental Series next week, as well as the Automation Studio sessions that are going to continue moving forward as well. So today we're going over the synchronizing of your subscribers, both within Marketing Cloud and Salesforce CRM. We're going to cover a couple of different areas, going from like easy to medium to hard. So we're going to start with the out-of-the-box syncing, what sort of comes natively between the two environments, how you can build an automation to sync back to Salesforce. A little bit more complicated use case. You'll get the title when we get to it. And then even going a little bit further with looking towards a little bit more complicated model, even more, which is the Salesforce consent model. And then we'll wrap up with 5 tips. So let's talk about out-of-the-box syncing. For those who, if you've got the Salesforce and Marketing Cloud connector set up, there is an email opt-out field that you will, I think, add when you create the connector to your lead and contact layout, that when that subscriber has been sent an email in Marketing Cloud, it has to be a subscriber in Marketing Cloud. When you uncheck, and you can see over here on the right, this, or when you check this email opt-out button in the Salesforce environment, you can see we're here in the lead in Salesforce, and you can see up here in this query, this lead, which we've got pulled in here, is not shows this has op field as a 0, which means it's not checked, and you can see the status of that subscriber is active. When you click on this field to set it to true, in the Marketing Cloud environment, it will actually unsubscribe that subscriber, and you'll see that field come through as value. So it's kind of cool that there's that native integration with Salesforce and Marketing Cloud. It's not 100%, so we'll be going through this today to sort of troubleshooting that, and also building into your solutions just to make sure that that has been working as expected. What has to happen is that, when you click on that, that box, it'll, unsubscribe them. But if you click on that box and they get added as a subscriber later and it's not triggered the right way, it may not work in Marketing Cloud. So it's not a perfect system. Just sort of a watch out on that. And then also watch out that we've got covered here. There are limitations in that if you uncheck that box on that lead, it will not resubscribe them in Marketing Cloud. Another note is that it's really just a one-way update of that subscriber status. So when you check that box in Salesforce CRM, it unsubscribes them in Marketing Cloud. If in Marketing Cloud that subscriber decides to go to be active, maybe you have a preference center that they log in, they click to when they receive an email and say they resubscribe, that will not change the email opt-out box natively in Salesforce. So it is a one-way, and it doesn't go from Marketing Cloud to Salesforce. So that's why the next section covers solutions to help you go back from Marketing Cloud to Salesforce. So one thing we've got carried out here, and again, we're going to see all these queries we'll go right in the platform and take a look at it. So when you're looking to sync back to Salesforce, you're looking to add a little bit more complexity than just the out-of-the-box functionality that comes between the two environments. You'll want to, first of all, make sure that you build in, functionality to just check that out-of-the-box functionality from Salesforce to Marketing Cloud. So in this example of the query, you'll want to, check to see, are there any, in this example, we're using a contact. Is there a contact that has that field, that has email opt-out field set to true, but they're still active in Marketing Cloud? So this is an automation we'll take a look at that you could use to make sure that that syncing from Salesforce to Marketing Cloud is 100% accurate. Also, you can build a very similar query to update the, to check the status of, in Marketing Cloud and update that record in Salesforce itself. So very similar query here, but here we're checking to see, okay, is there a record, a contact or a lead in Salesforce that has this email opted out field, which is, is false or 0, but they're unsubscribed in Marketing Cloud. Well, we'd like to probably, update that to email opt out. You want to set that to true, just to make sure that you're pushing that from Marketing Cloud to Salesforce. So that would be we'll walk through that query as well, that you could set up to a automation to, we'll showcase a couple of different options of how to actually update that field. One is through a journey. Another is using a script in Automation Studio to actually update that Salesforce field. So relatively easy on this. Functionality to update that has opted out field so that both, they're synced and flowing from both directions. A little bit more complicated is how you can, update more than just that email opt-out field or has opted out email field in Salesforce. So, the problem with just, having the email opt-out field flagged or not flagged is that it only shows the subscribed or unsubscribed value of that subscriber. And as Marketing Cloud experts, we all know that that's not all of the statuses that a subscriber can have. So we'll commonly have scenarios we're working with clients where they might want to know, okay, if it's active, if it's not checked, they could also be in a held status. So if those are familiar with the held status in Marketing Cloud, it is not unsubscribed, right? It's not something that a subscriber has actively chosen to be in that status. If they bounce 3 times within a certain period of time, Marketing Cloud changes that status in Marketing Cloud to held, which is, just like an unsubscribed status, they are not going to receive any emails to that email address. It's sort of Marketing Cloud's way of protecting these, deemed as poor email addresses if they're bouncing a lot. So how do you, change in the Salesforce environment so that you can see if somebody has a, within the active world, do they have a held status? Do they have a bounce status? Those different statuses. So a solution here we'll walk through in, in the system. You can create a custom field on the Salesforce contact and lead records. And you can create an automation to, first of all, you're going to want to populate all those fields. So you can see in this top query, we're just determining for all of those records in the Salesforce environment, whether that email delivery status is populated or not. And if it's not populated, then you would, update that email delivery status based on the status that's in all subscribers in Marketing Cloud. So first, you're going to want to populate all those fields. And then we've also got a query here that can update those on a daily basis. So the only slight variation here is that when you'll want to check to see if the email delivery status does not equal the subscriber status in all subscribers, then you know that needs to be updated by journey or automation. We'll go through those queries a little bit as well. One last area, a little bit more complex, is when you want to integrate, a little bit, sort of takes that email delivery status and expands it. So some might know there is a consent model in Salesforce. it aligns with Data Cloud, aligns with other products like Privacy Center, and there are different records, like there's an individual record, contact point consent that will drive a little bit more complex use case than that email delivery status. So in this example, we may not be able to go through this in detail, but the automations that might be involved in a solution like this is that the consent model typically is the database of record that you want to maintain, not having all subscribers be the database of record, which would be the case if it was just a Salesforce CRM to like an email delivery status. You'd still want all subscribers to be the database of record. If you wanted to migrate to a little bit more complex model and have the consent model be the database of record, you could set up automations where the consent records are being synced over into Marketing Cloud. They are determining, so you would set an automation that would update all subscribers, right, to make sure that it aligns with the consent model. You'd also want to create an automation that populates a data extension in Marketing Cloud so that you can segment your segments to who to send out emails to based on that consent model preference. And then if they are sent an email and they opt out in Marketing Cloud, that for that brief moment, Marketing Cloud will be the database of record for that subscriber, because you probably will have that opt out directly happen in Marketing Cloud. If they go to a preference center that's tied to the consent model, then that would directly update the consent model. But if they opt out, like in a reply, then all subscribers gets updated. And in that case, you'd want an automation that would update the consent model. It's a little bit more complex there. We won't go into that in too much detail, but just wanted to share sort of level of difficulty and from that standpoint. So before I move into the platform, just wanted to see if there are any questions. Nope, I'm not seeing any questions. Okay, please throw us questions in the chat. Let's go into Marketing Cloud and take a look at a couple of these queries. So we're using Query Studio. For those who aren't familiar with Query Studio, it's a free application created by Salesforce. Just go to the Google Query Studio, you'll find the link for it, and you'll be able to install it in your system. It allows you to create different queries and visualize the data without having to create a query and a data extension to see the data. So this is the first example that we brought up, which was to identify if how to validate the syncing between the Salesforce environment and the Marketing Cloud environment. So we're using the lead_Salesforce data extension that we have as a synchronized data extension once you set the connector. And we're also joining the subscribers data view. So I think we've covered this in other sessions. Data views are these amazing database of data extensions that are provided to you from Marketing Cloud. They sort of sit behind the scenes. You don't have like access to them. You can't add fields to them, but they include incredible details, a credible level of details. So this subscribers data view is basically a view of all subscribers that you can pull in that information. So we're just pulling in that subscribers field, joining it to the lead database so that we can output the status to see if it's the subscriber status. Anyways, that's that first query to use to validate that the unsubscribe is working correctly in between your two environments, which is obviously a good thing to check. So to do that, you would pick a record in Salesforce that pick a lead that is not unsubscribed. Let me see if I can find one where that has opted out field isn't checked. And right, so then you would take that lead ID, you would add it to this query, and you should be able to see that has opted field should be 0, and you should hopefully see that status is active. And then you can check that box. You might need to wait about 15 minutes for the has opted out field to be populated as a 1. It should unsubscribe them relatively quickly. So you can sort of check just to make sure that that's running. So that's a helpful way to use that query just to validate how that's working between those two environments. The next query is we use this to validate, if you take a look at this example, we're trying to determine, if you take a look at all of the contacts that we're syncing over and which one of those contacts has opted out that in the Salesforce CRM environment, but they're still showing a status of active, right? So this is a little bit of a disconnect between the two environments. This should be unsubscribed. So again, it's not a perfect system. So good to have a query in place. You could identify, okay, these two subscribers need to be updated to unsubscribed. So you would use a, your standard ETL automation to update that in all subscribers to change that status from active to unsubscribed. Here's an example of how you can use the data to determine if a subscriber is out of alignment in Salesforce versus in Marketing Cloud. So, here's an example where we're saying, okay, I want to run a list of all of those contacts that they're not selecting them as unsubscribed, but they have a subscriber status in Marketing Cloud as unsubscribed. So if your model is that to trust Salesforce CRM and you want to update that, this would identify the list that you could use in a journey or an automation to update these 3 records in Salesforce to change this has opted out field to 1 to make sure that that's updated so that it syncs between the two environments. Any questions so far? And I'm just sort of going through a couple of those queries really quickly. Okay. This next query is to determine that email delivery status, checking it on a regular basis. So again, it's using the same the contact synchronized data extension, the subscribers data view. We're bringing in this email delivery status field that we've added in the Salesforce environment. And what we want to do is once we've populated all those fields for Marketing Cloud, this could run on a daily basis where you're checking to say, hey, on Salesforce, the value that we're showing, if it's not what we're seeing in Marketing Cloud, then we should probably update that field in Salesforce. So an example here, a couple of these are a little bit, these data fields are not exactly accurate. This might have just been used for testing. But in this example, in Salesforce, for this contact, they're showing on the contact record as held, but in Marketing Cloud, they're actually active. So that would be a record that you would identify that you would send through a journey or through an automation to update. So let's just take a look at a journey of how you would do an update in the Salesforce environment. So this is the email delivery status journey that we've stood up for clients, where you'd run the query, you'd set it up for an automation that would be attached to this journey that would populate a data extension of those contacts or leads that would need to have that field updated. And you're dropping them in the journey, and all you're using is the object update activity to update either the contacts or the lead, depending on using a decision split that, does the record begin with a 00Q? If it's 00Q, it would go down the lead path. If it begins with 003, it goes down the contact path, and it updates that field accordingly. You take a look at this automation. This is the automation that's tied to that journey. You've got a separate query for contacts that query, and I think that just needs to be refreshed. It might have timed out, but anyways, sorry. This query would be that same query here that would identify those contacts that the subscriber status in Salesforce on that email delivery status field is out of alignment to the subscriber status in all subscribers. Still refreshing. And then one last thing I just wanted to cover. Here's an example of an automation where this is the ETL process, where this would be that query that identifies those records that need to be updated in Marketing Cloud. So if, like in that second query, where in Salesforce they're showing as being opted out, but they're still showing active in Marketing Cloud, that's where you would run that query, and then you would do your standard data extract, file transfer, and then import into Marketing Cloud. So sorry, I have to run through this very quickly. We'll try to cover this in a little bit more detail in a hands-on session, but let me just wrap up real quickly with a couple of tips. So, test to see if you've got this the connector set up between Salesforce and Marketing Cloud. Test to see if it has opted out email field is correctly working, and validate that using those queries. Set up those automations to make sure that there's 100% accuracy between that syncing from Salesforce into Marketing Cloud. And then while you're doing that, if you have the capacity and support on your team, try to do the syncing from Marketing Cloud back to Salesforce. Make sure that timing is right too, because depending on which environment is the database of record, you want to make sure that you're not updating the Salesforce environment, that then it's updating the Marketing Cloud environment. You get sort of that circle. And don't just set it and forget it. Make sure that you're checking in on this process on a regular basis, so that if things happen, it's a very important process to make sure that you've got right. So anyways, that's the session. I apologize for wrapping up so shortly. We'll try to cover this in a little bit more detail in maybe another hands-on session. And thank you, JB. Apologize for the short session.
And thank you, Tim. Instead of your busy schedule, you were able to come and share this with us. We really appreciate that. Thanks for being flexible and open for this. Thank you, everyone. So we'll continue these sessions every Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. And see you in the next session. Take care.